Hi guys, it's Tarika, also known as One Dope CPA in these internet streets, and I am here to welcome you to how to stop failing the CPA exam. If you've clicked on this video, I think it's safe to assume that you have more than likely taken the exam and fell short. So now you've probably just been online searching, seeking, crying out for the help that you need to get across the hump. But what you're finding is a lot of the videos are just talking about how other people pass and not really giving you too many real tips that you can use and apply to actually get the points that you need to free yourself from CPA exam hell. Hopefully, this video is the video that you've been looking for, and I can offer you maybe at least one little nugget that you can use to help get you to succeed. Before we begin, I will say that this is my first time making a YouTube video, so more than likely there are going to be errors throughout this video because I do not know how to edit, so just bear with me while we take this journey together. Before we begin, I want to kind of spend a little bit of time talking about who I created this video for. This video is specifically created for those who are tired of spending money, countless hours studying, being stuck in the dreaded 68 to 74 score range, seeing others pass and feeling like a total loser, being embarrassed to tell your family and friends you failed again, feeling hopeless because you feel alone and stupid, contemplating giving up, missing out on enjoyable times with family and friends, and also for those who are being proactive and taking the exam for the first time. The things that I named off, I specifically named them because if I'm honest, all of those descriptive words describe exactly how I felt during my own CPA journey. So I wasn't trying to be rude and call it stupid, but I felt so stupid because I couldn't figure out why in the world I kept making 74s and I could not seem to get the one measly little point that I needed to pass. But eventually I cracked the code and I figured out how to pass. And now I'm here to share with you how you can do the same and pass hopefully much, much faster than I ever did. So like I said before, this video is not going to go into a lot of detail about study techniques because there's already 1,000,001 YouTube videos out there on that subject. But I will say, if you're interested, I do have a CPA exam planner available on Amazon that you can buy if you need a little bit of help of figuring out how to structure your study. If you already know how to structure your studying, you don't need any additional help with that, I will say don't spend your money on that planner because all it is, it's just a letter from me with some pointers and a couple of red flags, green flags, and the rest of the book is literally just pages for you to write your notes and to keep track of your study habits so you can see like how you're progressing. So save your money and don't buy it if you don't need it. But if you do think you need it, just go to Amazon and search One Dope CPA and they'll populate for you. Continuing on. The number one reason why you are failing is more than likely because you lack understanding. Sure, yes, you can solve the problems. You know the key terminology definitions. You know the elements of all the key concepts. But underneath all that knowing, guess what? You still do not truly understand the concept. And the way the exam picks up on that is by asking you conceptual questions about the same topic in a different way. Think about it. If you're only able to answer the question correctly when it's presented to you in this one specific way, then guess what? You don't truly understand the concept. It's kind of like someone asking you what 2 plus 2 is, and you say, oh, 2 plus 2 is 4. But if someone asks you what 2 plus 1 plus 1 is, and you say 5, then bingo, they know that you don't truly know how to get to 4 by adding, because you only know that 2 plus 2 equals 4, and you don't conceptually understand that 2 plus 1 plus 1 also equals 4. And I will also say that this is why CPA exam courses provide you with thousands and thousands of multiple choice questions and SIMs. And it's essentially why some people can pass the exam by just working MCQs. So if you've been watching YouTube videos and all of these people tell you that, oh, I passed the exam by just working thousands of MCQs, sometimes what they're not telling you is that they passed by working the MCQs because they gained understanding of the concept by answering the questions. So when they were answering those questions, they in their mind probably started to pick up on the pattern of why the correct answer was right and also why the incorrect answer was wrong. And I would also say that when you're thinking about taking the CPA exam, the number one thing that you should keep in the forefront of your mind is critical thinking skills. They're testing your critical thinking skills. So what the AICPA needs from you is the same thing that the R&B group from the 90s, SWV, needed. They need understanding. Okay, so once you are able to sit for the exam and prove to them that you understand the concepts, that's when you'll pass, and not a minute before. Because the goal is for them to use the CPA exam as a way to gauge and determine if you know enough about these specific topics that they're testing you on, that they can trust you to handle situations in a way that will not bring public disdain or stain the public's trust of accountants. They want to protect the profession and the integrity of the profession at all costs. Think about it this way. If you were to obtain a license and open your own firm, let's say doing audits, but you truly didn't understand audits and how to complete an audit correctly, both you and your customer would be in a world of trouble. So to prevent those types of things from happening, you land in the 68 to 74% range when you're taking the exam. And I dare say that some of you aren't passing because you actually have too much information in your head and not enough at the same time. And I'll expand on that as we continue throughout the video. To me, when you're studying for the exam, you will want to keep in mind that you don't want to get so lost in the trees that you miss the forest. The trees are the solving of every single problem, the knowing every single definition, every element of every concept. But the forest is seeing how and why, when those trees come together, they form the forest, which is understanding. So think of the trees as the problems, the terms, and the concepts, but the forest is the way that all of those things work together in knowing and understanding the concept. The second reason that you're failing is because you're either learning and not studying, or you're studying and not learning. And I know you're probably sitting there looking at your screen. You just heard me say that, and you're thinking to yourself, girl, what in the cat in the hat are you talking about? This is real and wrong. What I'm trying to get you to understand is if you're doing one and not the other, it's a red flag, and more than likely, you will fail. I will say that if you are coming up short by just a couple of points, more than likely you're in one of those situations. If you've been out of school for a while and decided to go back and get your license, I'm willing to put money on you falling in the learning and not studying category. People who fall here will watch the videos, read the chapter, work all the problems, then go take the exam and fail because they did not study. They did what I like to refer to as a learning pass through. They got satisfactory scores on all their modules and assumed they were ready to sit for the exam, but they did not put forth any effort to reinforce what they learned. So to solve for this error, the only thing you need to really do is to start cumulatively reviewing for at least 30 minutes a day. I will say that after you fail, you just need to start completely over from scratch. So just go through whatever process you took to get the score that you got, but to go the extra mile, you're going to have to dig a little deeper and start to reinforce what you learned by after you finish your learning session. So after you finish reading, watching the videos, working the problems again, you're going to pretty much work problems over everything that you learned the previous day. So if you just got done with, say, module 4, you're going to spend 30 minutes before you're done with your study session of working problems and stems from modules 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then the next day, when you start to go over module 5, you're going to spend 30 minutes at the end or at the beginning going over what you learned the previous day. So you're going to review modules 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you're going to touch on 5. So you'll just keep doing that every day until it's time for you to sit for your exam. That way you don't forget anything. And also when you're doing that, you'll be able to see what your weak areas are, because the more you do that, you're going to expose the weak areas, and because it's going to allow you to drill down and determine what areas are problematic for you. So then you can really spend extra time on the concepts that you thought you knew that you really don't. If you're a recent grad, I will say that more than likely you're on the opposite end of the spectrum, and you are probably studying and not learning. By this, I mean you probably more than likely were recently exposed to a lot of the material. So in your head, you're automatically thinking that you can save time by skipping the reading or watching the videos. And if you're comfortable with skipping the reading and watching the videos and only working the problems, you're probably not catching that there are weak areas because you're not going back and doing your due diligence to really discover why you're not getting the problems correct. So you're working problems, but you're not taking the time to go back and review why you're getting the problems that you're getting wrong, incorrect. And so what you want to do is you can keep that study method if it's been working for you and you were close to passing, but I would suggest going back and adding a learning component where you actually read or watch videos of the sections of the problems that you got wrong every day for at least 30 minutes. So I'm not saying that you need to go back and read and watch every single video, but you want to focus in on the videos that connect to the areas that you are weak in. That way you're actually studying and learning. Moving right along. So the third reason you're probably failing is because you're not going the extra mile. So for me, when I was a kid, I spent years doing judo. And one of the core principles of judo is maximum efficiency and minimum effort. When I was taking the CPA exam, I feel like my life was completely out of control and I had like so many things going on that I lost sight of that core principle. But when I was able to quiet my mind and remember the principle of maximum efficiency, minimum effort, I was able to realize part of the reason that I was failing is because I was doing too much and not enough at the same time. So one thing about judo by nature is very process driven. Every single throw is a process. And the maximum efficiency, minimum effort focuses on making the most effective use of your mental and physical energy. And I was doing neither. So part of the reason I wasn't utilizing my energy effectively is because I had fell off into reading things online about other people's negative experiences with the exam. So you know how once you make a 74, you go online and you read on these forums and you see where like other people were making like 74s and you kind of just fall into wallowing in self-defeating behavior. So that's exactly what I was doing. And when I stopped doing that and I shifted my focus back to figuring out how I could get the maximum efficiency with the minimum effort, I sat and I thought about things that I had access to that I wasn't using. But before I did that, I will say I, in my head, had resolved and just told myself that it wasn't me, that I wasn't the problem. It was the course. It was the course. It had to be. It could not be me because I had never felt anything before. So 4 courses later, I decided that, okay, it's not the course. So I spent a lot of time and a lot of money trying to figure out like why I wasn't passing. And honestly, I will say that all of the courses are about the same. I spent my own money, like no firm paid for me to like have the 4 courses that I had. But what I will say is I noticed that all the courses pretty much had a lot of the same questions. The stems were a little different and the teaching styles were a little different, but most of them were set up the same. When I was still in denial about why I was failing, instead of going the extra mile, I told myself I would spend even more money and I purchased these tutoring sessions from this tutor who actually wrote CPA exam questions. And he was great. I mean, he and I both thought that I would pass, but even after like all the sessions that I had with him, I was still making 74s. I was still making 74s, and I could not, for the life of me, figure out like what I was doing wrong. At one point, I just broke down and I was like, God, like, what have I done to someone to deserve like this score of 74 time after time after time? It was literally like, it was just driving me insane. But like I said, when I quieted my mind, the first thing that entered my mind that I wasn't using was the internet. Like, I couldn't believe that I never just sat and thought that I could do an internet search to see what the AICPA and the PCAOB website said about the topics that I was learning, because obviously the information that was in the courses wasn't enough for me personally to get a good understanding of what was going on. For most people, yeah, what's in the course may be enough for them, but for me, I think part of my problem was I wasn't fully clear as to what was going on, because the courses only gave me like little snippets. And for me, I need a full picture. So I started doing these internet searches, and I'll actually show you guys like what I was searching and how things finally started to come together for me. But I would search on AICPA website, PCAOB, and I would also read articles written by other accountants on whatever subject I was studying, and that alone filled in a lot of gaps for me, and it made me understand the why behind what I was learning, and that's when things really began to click. So, really began to click. So I'll take a moment to show you guys an example of what I mean by doing a search. So bear with me. So essentially, I would just go to the internet and I would choose a subject. So let's say you were studying audit and you wanted to find out about attestation engagement. So I would come on here and do AICPA. Yeah. So I would type something like AICPA statements on standards for attestation engagements. And I would pretty much click the first thing that I saw and do a little reading on that to see what it says. All right. So I would do a quick little skim and be like, well, that's not really what I want. Come back, click on something else. All right, so I'm not gonna download this, but for the most part, I would come on here and I would read and download a lot of these to get more clarification on what was going on. And then I would also come in and do the same search, but I would do PCAOB. All right, so here you can pretty much see the complete framework. So it's going to talk about the section applies to engagements, except for those services discussed in paragraph 0.04, which is down here, in which the certified public accountant in the practice of public accounting is engaged to issue or does issue an examination, review, or agreed upon procedures report on a subject matter or an assertion about a subject matter. So I would just come and I would read pretty much all of this to get a more detailed view of what I was learning in my course. And while I can't show you guys anything in any of the courses that I had purchased, I will say that you can cross-reference the things that you read on the AICPA website and the PCAOB website to what's in your course to get a more detailed understanding of what's going on, and that will help you to start answering the questions. I will say that the searches provided me with so much more information that it finally made sense to me how this one lady that I know, she passed the exam without a study course at all. And that tutor that I had, he kept telling me that I didn't need a course to pass. He actually discouraged it because in working with him, we found that a lot of the questions in the courses, they had the wrong answers, but neither here nor there. I will say that you can pass with just your course, but if you're a person like me and you require more information to fully understand a topic, then go the extra mile and research things on the AICPA and the PCAOB websites. And the second thing that I had access to, but I wasn't utilizing, was the AICPA blueprints. I remember there being times when I would go sit for my exam and I would leave thinking, where in the world did these people get these questions from? Because I never saw anything like that in my course. And just being at home after my exam, I would stop and wonder, like, how in the world am I ever going to pass what in my head was a whack-a-mole of a test? But I never used the blueprints. So I'm going to go back and show you guys the blueprints. So the simplest way to find the blueprints is to just, let's do odd. Just do a search and you're going to go to the AICPA website once again. Make sure you're reading for the most current blueprints. I know in 2024, the test is going to change completely, so the blueprints will be different, but for now, just go on the site and you can read the blueprints. The blueprints are going to give you a lot of information as far as what you need to know to pass the test. Here was a person who read every chapter. I watched every video and I worked every one of those 1,000+ problems and I still failed because I was in the trees. I was thinking about this exam incorrectly and I felt super overwhelmed because I thought I needed to know every single thing that was in my review course to pass, when honestly that wasn't true. In my opinion, courses are actually filled with a bunch of fluff that can get you off track, because with, I will say, all of the courses, when I watch the videos, oftentimes I would watch those videos and then I would try to work like the homework problems after the section, and I couldn't answer the questions because nothing connected for me. And the same thing happened when I went to sit for my exam. I was a person who initially thought that whatever questions I was answering while studying for my CPA exam, I was going to see like similar questions when I sat for the exam. And that's really not true, because what the AICPA wants from us is for us to be able to think critically. So if you are thinking you're going to read this book or answer these questions and then go sit for the exam and you're going to get something very, very similar, almost exactly like what you were seeing in the exam, you're going to fail. You are going to fail because you're not expanding your thinking. You have to be able to expand your thinking to pass the exam. So using the blueprints allowed for me to drill down and focus on the trees and the forest that were most important. On the site, the blueprints state that the items detailed out in them are the minimum level of knowledge and skill required to pass and obtain a license. So, all right. So if you're reading this, it says, the purpose of the blueprint is to document the minimum level of knowledge and skill necessary for initial licensure. So it's basically saying this is the minimum that you can know to pass the exam. So if you're a person who you're like me and you were completely overwhelmed with the amount of information that you were having to consume and take in, like I said, the blueprints are gonna kind of drill down and let you know which trees you need to focus on. Let me scroll down. All right. And so they are set up in areas. So you got area 1, ethics, professional responsibilities, and general principles. And then you have how it's weighted. So it's going to be 15 to 25% of the weight of the exam. So an example of what I would do is I would come here and something like AICPA Code of Professional Conduct. I would go do an internet search on AICPA Code of Professional Conduct, read what it had to say about it on the AICPA website, and then I would also read about what PCAOB website said about it. And that would pretty much get me to the point of being able to have a good enough understanding that I could remember and understand these 2 principles and also be able to apply everything that they have checked for application. So you would just go back to the internet search window that we were at and do, let's see, Code of Professional So here, you're gonna click here and, well, I wouldn't go there, but all right, so here it is. AICPA Code of Professional Conduct. Rule 201 requires that members provide professional services with competency. And then it's gonna tell you the elements. It's responsibilities, public interest, integrity, objectivity, independence, and due care. So you would read this and then you would be able to go back and reference essentially what was in your study course. For me, going the extra mile was doing those searches and sitting and asking myself, why would the AICPA want me to know about this topic? How does me knowing about this topic benefit the general public and my potential customers? After doing that exercise, I would usually obtain the understanding that I needed to the point that for most of the topics, I no longer had to try to force myself to remember them in detail because I actually understood the concepts enough that I could just look at the MCQs and immediately know the correct answer because I knew the choices that were wrong and why, and I knew what the right answer was and why. So when you are taking the CPA exam, if you're a person who thinks you're going to be able to just remember like all of this information, it's no way. There's no way that you're going to be able to remember it. And that's why understanding is so important. Once you understand, you don't really need to remember as much because you truly understand. So I suggest you try some of the things that work for me, or you can carve out your own path. Either way, you need to just sit and figure out what you're going to do to go the extra mile. And then, just put forth the effort to do it. Okay, so moving right along, the fourth reason you're not passing, it's because you are not scheduling your exam for an optimal time. And this concept applies to studying as well. For me, I'm very much so a morning person. And I had absolutely no business scheduling my exams for the afternoon, let alone thinking I was going to be able to study for my exam after work, because by 2 p.m. I am checked out. Um, I have a very short attention span, so I can't just sit and study for like hours and hours and hours on end. I have to like break my studying up. And I will say that because I have a short attention span, that this worked against me when I was taking my exam, because I would literally catch myself like sitting in my exam and being completely zoned out, like wasting time. And I remember one particular time that I just left in the middle of the exam because I was like so hungry and unfocused that I was like, it's no need for me to fail and be hungry in the same day. So don't be like me. Put forth the effort to make sure you like schedule your exam for an optimal time, and make sure you always eat before you go to take an exam. Yeah, I was just a mess back then. But back to what I was saying. If you know you are not a morning person, don't schedule your exam for 8 a.m. Just don't do it. Schedule it for later in the day. And also, if you are working a job and you know you have a huge project due, or that month end close is coming up, don't schedule your exams around those times. Because you just don't want to be stressed out. Okay. I remember um at one point I was working a job where my CFO, we had this staff accountant, and she would, at month end, she would put all her journal entries in incorrectly, like every single month. She would put these entries in wrong, and it would just drive me up the wall because I just could not understand like how month after month, if you are literally keying the same journal entries, how you're putting them in incorrectly. Anyway, neither here nor there. You don't want to schedule your exam around a time that you know is going to be stressful for you, which leads me into the next thing. Um, don't schedule your exam right around or after a traumatic event. If most traumatic events are unforeseen. So if you already have your exam scheduled, you can reschedule your exam. There's a fee, but it's not that expensive. It's probably like less than $60. So just spend the extra money, reschedule, and take your time, because the last thing that you need after a traumatic event is a failing score. It's just going to make things even worse for you. So take your time, spend the money, reschedule the exam. And this next one is specifically for women. Try not to schedule your exam for the week of or the week before your cycle. For me, this was a game changer because the week before and the week of, lots of women have brain fog and poor concentration. Like, when I first noticed this was when I discovered I had a pattern of like not really getting anywhere in my studying or remembering like one single thing when I would go and take my exam, like during those 2 weeks. It was always bad. It was just always bad. And I would get so annoyed with myself because I couldn't believe that I spent all this time studying and I could remember absolutely nothing. Like, I had no energy. I was completely unfocused, and it just never clicked to me that that could be affecting me so horribly. So when I put forth the effort to make sure I took my exam after, like immediately after, or within, the 2 weeks after, my scores like improved drastically. So I suggest, if you're a woman and you're struggling, that you alter your exam date to test like after your cycle, to ensure that you have the most mental clarity as possible. And the last thing on this topic is for you to consider your golden hour. To me, your golden hour is the time that you do your absolute best work. Like I said, I'm a morning person, and my golden hour is between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. So studying and sitting for my exam around those times, like, if it's okay for me to like schedule my exam at 8, because I know like I'm gonna run into my golden hour while taking the exam, so I'll be in my zone. But if you are a person who you do your best work at night, even if it's late at night, we obviously know you cannot sit for your exam at like 11 p.m. So just shift your schedule so that you can at least study during your golden hour, and try to take your test like as late in the afternoon as you possibly can. And I think that will help a lot. Okay, guys, so after the 4 things that I discussed, I think you're here. You're in between where you don't want to be and where you would like to be. I really truly believe that if you apply the things I detail out in this video, I believe that you'll pass. It's not a question of if you'll pass, it's literally just up to you to do the work and decide when you'll pass. Think of the things we talked about as the bridge of information you may have been missing to get you to where you want to be. Away from frustration, that almost doesn't count zone, annoyance, cursing, course renewal fees, and over to where you would like to be: passing scores, your license, opportunities, peace, your life back, new jobs, vacations, happiness, joy, all the things you've always wanted and more. And I will say, you are probably thinking, okay, we talked about these things, but it still doesn't truly make sense to me about what I need to do to get to where I want to be. But lucky for you, I made this handy dandy candidate journey map to show you what you need to do and how to do what you need to do. So there are 4 things that you need to do. You need to ensure full understanding, learn and study, go the extra mile, and schedule your exam for an optimal time. Now, the how. How you're going to ensure a full understanding is by solving problems, knowing key terminology, knowing the elements of the key terminology, and obtaining an understanding. Okay, so like I talked about previously, the trees in the forest. The problems, the terms, the concepts are the trees, and the forest is the understanding. And you know that the way that you will make a forest is by combining all the trees. So when you're studying, you will want to make sure that you can answer the SAMs. The SAMs pretty much solidify if you have a clear understanding of the concepts, because the SAMs, they take all of the trees, the elements, and they mush them together and give you this one big problem for you to figure out. So if you can solve the SAMs, then that means that you have an understanding of the concepts well enough that you should be able to pass. But do note, more than likely, the SAMs that you get on your actual exam, they won't really look too much like the SAMs that you have in your course. And by that, I mean, they're going to be different, but the meat of the SAMs will be similar. Okay. With learning and studying, you want to read, watch the lectures, review cumulatively, and be able to explain the concepts audibly. So if you can explain a concept to someone audibly and make the other person understand it, then that's how you know you understand. If you cannot explain the concept audibly and in a way that the other person understands, then that means that you don't know it well enough to explain it. So go back, and if you can't explain it, then you need to study a little bit more. With going the extra mile, you want to visit the AICPA website, PCAOB, watch YouTube videos, and read articles about the subjects that you're learning about, and just cross-reference the information that you learn to whatever study course that you have. And the last thing, scheduling your exam for an optimal time. Make sure that you consider Mondays. For me, when I was on my CPA exam journey, I was working a job with people that I did not like. I didn't like any of these people, okay, y'all? Like, I hate to say that, but I didn't like these people, and I would be angry every day about something or another. So my job was very stressful, and thinking that I would take the test on a random Wednesday or a Friday after like being pissed off with these people, it would definitely like affect my performance. So when I figured out that if I took it on a Monday, then I had at least 2 days away from these people. I would have the 2 days away from them, and it would allow me to like be able to take my test with minimal stress, and that definitely helped me. So definitely consider Mondays. And even if you're not in a situation where you don't like the people you work with, maybe you love all your coworkers, and it's fine, but also taking your test on Monday will give you like the weekend to kind of really review and brush up on things so that you're fresh on Monday. So definitely consider taking your test on a Monday. Know your golden hour, consider your workload, and for women, make sure you consider your cycle and time out the testing schedule for an optimal time. If me going over this map didn't really help you and you still have questions about it, just leave me a comment below and I'll try my best to answer the question for you, because one thing that I hate is like watching informational videos and people like teaching me something that I really want to learn and they don't clearly articulate how to do it. So for me, making this map was really important, and I really want for you guys to understand what I was trying to convey on the other slides that I went over. And the last and the fifth thing that I need for you guys to understand is the golden rule. So, the golden rule in life is to treat people how you want to be treated. I personally believe the golden rule for the CPA exam is first you believe, and then you understand. The real reason I struggled with the CPA exam for so long is because deep down inside, I had reservations about if I could pass. My own insecurities like subconsciously blocked me from passing. Like everyone around me could not understand like why I kept making these scores that were like so close to 75, but not quite. And when I was honest with myself, I knew that in my heart I hadn't accepted that I could and would eventually pass. And a part of that was because with me being like who I am and not really seeing people who look like me in the profession, I kind of felt like maybe I'm not really supposed to be a CPA. I don't know. But I will say, when I accepted in my heart that I could and I would eventually pass the exam, things shifted and I began to understand the material. So outside of all of the things that I was doing, especially when I was like spending money, thinking that I could solve my problem with money, like money wasn't gonna like get me to believe in myself. Like I spent all this money on all these courses and on like the absolute best tutor that money could buy, a tutor who wrote CPA exam questions. And if you want the link to him, comment below and I'll give you his information because he is like really good. He didn't help me pass because I didn't believe I could pass. Like he knew that I knew the information, but for some reason when I got like to the test, I would always bomb. And it was because like I didn't truly believe in myself. So spend some time thinking and being honest with yourself about if you have any mental blocks around passing the exam. Think about why you don't think you can pass if you're like me and for some reason you just seem to think you're not gonna pass. Like spend some time thinking about why you think you can't pass and then think of all the reasons why you can and will pass. Also think about all the people who will benefit from your journey. So this brings me to the end of my video. For me, posting this video was a lot because I'm truly an introvert and not one of the fake ones that say they are introverts for attention. I'm really an introvert, which is why like you don't see me in the video. But more than an introvert, I am a believer in Christ. So when I was randomly prompted to make this video, I'd like to tell you that I got right up and was like, yes, Lord, I'm going to make this video to help others pass the CPA exam because this is what you want me to do. No, I did not make the video. And I actually like disobeyed God and waited for like 4 years. I waited 4 years to make this video. So if you came across this video and you made it to the end, I sincerely hope that it helps you in your journey. Because maybe the video is for you. Not sure, but I will say that last week I was randomly like minding my little business, lying on my couch when like this verse like dropped into my spirit. So I read the verse and something told me, it was like, read the verse before and after it. Like, I'm sure most people, if you know anything about the Bible, you've read this verse before, people use it all the time. So I got up and I read like the verse before and the verse after. And the thing that stood out to me is that the writer was waiting for an answer in verse 1. And in verse 2, God essentially describes to him and tells him to write it down and make it plain and simple to understand so that anyone who passes by it will quickly run to adjust their behavior speedily. So when I read that, verse 1 immediately made me think about my CPA exam journey and how long I waited for guidance and how there was no real help for me to figure out like how to pass. And when God finally revealed it to me and instructed me to make this video, for whoever should come across it, because as verse 3 states, the vision is for an appointed time and it will surely come. So I don't know which one of you have been praying like for an answer, but I'm pretty sure something in this video is specifically for you. And think about how faithful God is, in that even in me being boldly disobedient and not making a video for years, to just up and randomly put it up for such a time as this, that means that the video is right on time for you. Even if it's just one of you, I would like to say that as long as you stay down until it's time for you to come up, that you will pass. And when you pass, come back and let me know that you passed. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up or leave a comment below if you would like for me to make more videos, more detailed videos about the CPA exam, my own journey, and any tips that you may like. I'll make you another video in hopes that it will help you pass. Maybe we can set up like a live stream, maybe, of studying. I don't know, anything that will help another person pass down for it. That's all I have. Later.